This is Tim Jacobs. I'm here at Anglerzall, and I want to demo for you the 3 basic deer hair techniques that you need to understand to tie all deer hair flies. In this first tape, I'm going to demo the first 2 techniques, and these are the 2 techniques that you use most often when you're tying trout flies like muddlers and hoppers. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start. I'm not tying normally with my gel spun thread. I would start it with some Zap-A-Gap, but since we're really not tying a fly, if I do enough wraps here, the thread will adhere. So I'm just going to get my thread started. I'm going to pick an all-purpose deer hair to use with this. This is kind of my mid-season hair that we're using on all of our hopper muddler patterns like that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to clip a small amount of hair. See, there's the amount of hair I've clipped for the placing, and what I'm going to do is place and flare a deer hair wing. So the first thing I want to do is I want to comb out the underfur. And you can see I've got all that underfur that came out. That's going to help that collect water and keep the fly floating better. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the hair and I'm going to put it tips down in my stacker. And we'll come down here in the table with it and give a few good sharp taps, and you'll notice when I pull it out of the stacker you can see the tips have evened up very nicely. So I'll remove that hair from the stacker, and that's what it looks like when it comes out. So I'm going to just change hands here. What I like to do is I come in here and I'm just going to even up the butts of the hair like that. So now I'll come in, and when I'm placing my collar, I'm just going to measure the collar out to whatever distance I want it on the fly. And all you do is you take the hair and you shove it down around the hook shank. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to get 3 wraps of thread, and holding the hair collar in place, don't let it move, you just pull and flare that hair right in place. Now one thing I'm not going to do is I'm not going to take my thread and wind forward through the hair. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to pull the hair back like this, and with some thread tension I'm going to work that thread up through the hair and bring it to the front and get a couple of wraps. Now I'm going to come back to my hair and I'm going to do a second bunch of hair a little differently than the first. So here's the second bunch of hair I've clipped. Take just a little bit of that out. Here's the second bunch. Again, I'm going to comb out the underfur. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this hair and I place it in my hand like this. It's a little hard to do here, but I'm going to place it in my hand like this, and I'm going to clip the tips and the butts. So I have this little piece of hair like this. Now what I want to do is I'm going to come in here, I'm going to lay the hair in along the hook shank, I'm going to wrap 3 times, and then as the hair begins to flare I'm going to let go of it, and I'm going to chase it around the hook shank, and normally it'll rotate about 2 times, which is what that did. It rotated about 2 times and then it locks in place and it stops turning. Now I come in back like this. Again, don't wind your thread through the hair, but instead come back here, work the thread in front of the hair, get a couple wraps, and now either with your fingers or with a small compacting tool like this, I'll come and I'll just push the hair back. And typically for a muddler or hopper head, that's all I need to do is just stop right there. And I've got the hair on the hook shank. And then I can come in and I can trim. So let's go ahead and let's trim this. And there's your little muddler or your hopper head. One comment on the last technique that I want to make sure to emphasize is if you want the hair to distribute evenly around the hook shank, the tension on the thread has got to be the same all the way around the hook shank. If you come up here and you hit the tension decreases and then suddenly you pull hard as you're going down on the hook and suddenly you're less tension here, the hair won't distribute evenly around the hook shank. If you look at your hair head and you notice all the hair has gone to one side but you've got a big empty space on the other side, you probably haven't kept good even tension as you're rotating that thread, that thread through the hair as it's rotating around the hook shank. So with those two techniques, you can come in and you can tie all of your little hopper and muddler style heads.